Hello, assalamu alaikum. I am Abdul Basit from Joypur Hat.
Wa alaikum assalam, Mr. Abdul Basit. If you kindly mute your mic, we are about to start. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You all are kindly requested to please close your videos and your mics. We are about to start. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Educational Webinar Jam. Today, our presentation is done by Dr. Tina Afroza. She use of assessments in everyday classroom practices. Tina is certified Advanced TESOL Practitioner and an E-Teacher Alumna of U.S. Department of State, Dhaka, Bangladesh, with the academic publications and presentations in different national and international conferences. She has earned inspiration to continue with her research interest, which includes assessment, learning autonomy, teaching with technology, teacher training, education, and ELT. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You all are kindly requested to please mute your mics and close your videos till the end of the webinar when the interaction will take place. Without further ado, I would request Tina to please start your presentation. The floor is all yours, Tina.
Thank you so much. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Educational Webinar Jam for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my experiences, my ideas on alternative assessment through this platform. I'm very much honored and very happy actually to be one of these speakers this year, 2020, of Educational Webinar Jam. So thank you so much once again. Now, as you all know that today, my presentation or my webinar will be on alternative assessments, but I would like to request all of you to focus on the last part of the title, which is assessing everyday classroom practices. So it's not about the usual type of assessments or the formative or summative assessments that we usually assess through, our learners every semester, every year, every month. Rather, it's about assessing them every day. And how can we do that? Well, I believe that most of us here are teachers. Most of us are teachers here, so I believe that we have some general ideas at least about alternative assessment, but still who don't have ideas about alternative assessments or who have the basic ideas, for them I would like to repeat that this alternative assessments focus on two specific points actually. The first point is about the requirement. It's about the requirement. Here actually the students are required to spend extended time, complex thinking and integration of subject matter learning. So these three are requirements regarding alternative assessments. And the second point actually is what it determines. It determines what students can and cannot do in contrast to what usually they do or do not know. So this is a kind of contrast between what students can and cannot do and what they do or do not know. Now, we all are familiar with different types of traditional assessments because this is how we have been assessing our students probably since the beginning of our career, because each country, each institution has its own policy or has its own rules and regulations, own curricula, own assessment strategies, techniques, tools. So we may actually focus on different types of tools when we think of traditional assessments. And when we think of alternative assessment tools, actually, they focus on the growth and the performance of the student. Now, as you can see that I have written two specific points regarding these two different points, different types of assessments. The first one is before MOOC. Why I have written this, regarding traditional assessment point, and why I have written after MOOC, after the alternative assessment point. I guess you have this question in your mind. Well, the thing is, I got the idea of different types of alternative assessment tools after doing MOOCs, after doing a specific MOOC, and before that, an orientation regarding another MOOC in relation to that actually. So these two MOOCs actually gave me a lot of ideas, interesting ideas. They gave me a lot of interesting tools actually through which I can assess my learners every day after each lessons. And that is why I would like to mention the two MOOCs which actually have proved very, very helpful for me. And since 2020, we have been teaching online, we have been assessing our learners online. So I believe that this assessment is a serious concern today in this global world, specifically for the teachers. Now, these two are those two MOOCs. The first one, as you can see, it is titled as Art of Everyday Classroom Assessment of English Language Learners. And the second one was actually a kind of teacher orientation course on assessment of English language learners. Well, I must say that these two MOOCs changed my life, changed the way I used to look at different types of assessments. And these two MOOCs have been offered by the American Center, US Embassy, Dhaka, Bangladesh, in my country. Now, after doing these two MOOCs, and even before that, I had some basic ideas, general ideas about different types of alternative assessment tools. But after doing the MOOCs, I have got some more interesting ideas, and I have included very few over here. For example, as you can see, that in terms of assessing learners, we can request them to plot a family tree, and this actually can be done with English language learners, specifically regarding any of the content or subject, whatever we teach actually in the class. We may conduct an interview. This is also an interesting type of alternative assessment. We can create an infographic, including information, pictures, together actually can engage learners and also help them to assess. At the same time, writing how-to manual, presenting opposite points of view, producing multimedia interactive posters, which very much work actually in my language classroom, and designing travel brochure. This is actually very much, I believe, effective for the tourism and hospitality management students, because as English teachers, we are supposed to teach them English as well. And then reflection diaries, and then dramatization, gathering real-world examples, portfolio assessment, observation-based assessment, and then questionnaires, surveys, and assessment cards. And there are a lot of other tools also, but these are some interesting tools which I believe that help me to rethink about assessing my learners. Now, today I would like to focus on specifically 4 different types of alternative assessments, and I would like to show you actually a sample of one of these later at the end of the presentation. Now, the 4 different types of tools which I would like to focus today starts with reflection diaries and e-portfolios. So these two are 2 different tools. And the other 2 types are individual assessment cards and progressive I can statements. I believe that some of you today may have a lot of questions in mind regarding individual assessment cards, specifically with this one, because let me share that this individual assessment card tool actually was totally new to me as well. It was totally new before the MOOC, but after that MOOC course, I got familiar with the idea and I found that very, very interesting. I would share that with you later. Now, before getting into the details, I'd like to request you to focus on the point which I have mentioned under individual assessment card, that is instant feedback for learner training. So this is how we can be benefited, not the students, but as teachers, we can be benefited. So it's about improving a lesson. It's about improving our teaching. It's about, developing that teaching learning environment or scenario overall. And the point which I have mentioned under progressive I can statement is promoting learner confidence. So probably you can guess that through this type of tool, I mean, if you can use this progressive I can statements, we can actually promote learner confidence. And how? But how? Well, I would share with you, of course. Now, let us start with the e-portfolio, but before that, general ideas about portfolio. Now, in my context, in my country, uh, well, in most of the cases, the secondary and higher secondary or the primary teachers are not that, in very much comfortable in terms of using this type of alternative assessment tools in most of the cases. So specifically for them, I'd like to give them this general idea that portfolio is used to assess, evaluate, and grade students' work using rating scale than numerical or letter scores. And the interactiveness of this kind of assessment encourages and develops a relationship between not only teacher and student, but also it helps to develop a relationship between student and teacher parent as well. Now, as we are online now these days, and we have the focus on assessing learners online, here e-portfolios actually can be a wonderful way to assess our everyday lessons. And how is that? Well, as I have mentioned that there are some teachers from my country also in this webinar today. So, well, I'm very much happy to share all these ideas with not only the international audiences, but also with my teachers, my country teachers as well. So for all of you, actually, I would like to mention that e-portfolio is something very, very interesting, could be very, very interesting if we can design, if we can plan, if we can, give much time before keeping this in front of the student. Well, that is important. Now, regarding e-portfolios, well, I would like to mention that it could be very, very flexible, and it can be actually, it can include or it can prove very, very effective in terms of keeping long-term record of a student's development or a student's progress. So that is why it is important. And apart from that, it could reflect a student's real performance actually. And not only the strong or the very exclusive performances, of course not, rather also it may reflect how poorly they perform, probably in one or two lessons, or how actually they are not getting a specific point from a lesson. Now, an e-portfolio may contain a lot of things, and that is why I mentioned that we need to devote our time actually in terms of designing how it could be actually benefited for our student and for myself as well. So it could have different types of files, text, pictures, videos, audios, and then writing samples, of course. And it may start with the first draft. Our students in language classes write paragraphs, essays, and lots of other stuff. So they can start including their first drafts as well. And projects prepared for a class, and then they can include their homework, classworks, their different types of extracurricular activities, and lots of other things. Now, let us move a little from e-portfolio to the reflection diaries, reflective diaries actually. Well, this is something which I would like to specifically focus today. Why? Because this semester, my fresher students, the students who are fresher in the university, they have been actually maintaining their reflection diaries since the beginning. And I would like to show you later after the presentation, some specific responses from my students. So So here I would like to focus on three specific points at the beginning. Now, reflection diary, as you can understand from the term, that it actually reflects. Now, what does it reflect? Probably that is the question. It reflects everything. It reflects everything. It reflects learning. It can reflect what did I learn even, and where actually I need to focus on more. It could reflect actually where a student is not actually on the right track, or where he or she is going wrong, or maybe where he or she is not getting the point properly. So a lot of things, different types of reflection, of course. And here I have specifically mentioned 3 points. The first is teaching learning activities that usually take place in the classroom. Usually in a language class, as I am a language teacher, well, usually in a language class, we do a lot of activities with our students to engage them throughout, specifically when we think of online classroom. So all these activities can be, reflect through these reflection diaries, of course. And the second point is about providing them with opportunities to search and express their learning in a personal way. So personalization is very, very important in reflection diaries. Well, it's about how I personally am feeling. What did I personally learn from the lesson? What didn't I personally get from the lesson? So personalization actually is something which very much reflects through reflection diaries, and to relate and apply their learning to their own teaching and assessment practice. Well, as an English teacher, I must say that a lot of our students who are in the applied linguistics and English language teaching stream, they are very much interested, in teaching. They get interested in teaching later after completing their masters. So yes, of course, this could be a very good reflection for them as well, who will take teaching as their career after completing their honors and master's degrees. Why? Because this is how they can also reflect, and they can also, focus on assessment while they will be teaching in future. Now, there are a lot of advantages of reflection diaries, and I have mentioned only 3 over here. But of course, I believe that whenever you will start practicing reflection diaries, you would be able to come up with a lot of different advantages as well, some more advantages as well. The first one is students will be actively engaged to the learning process. I believe that through this way, students have that kind of feeling that now I will have to speak up. Now I will have to share personally on my own with my teacher, because that is how I will be able to develop myself. I will be able to improve my performances. And it may increase students' interest, empower them to be more responsible to their own learning, and more reflective in their study. And of course, they may share ideas through speaking if we can encourage them. Now, this semester, as I have mentioned, my students have been maintaining reflection diaries since the beginning. I also have a plan and shared with them that at the end of this semester, before the completion of the semester, they'll have to actually present all their ideas from reflection diaries in front of the, not in front of the class actually, but also in front of the entire faculty members of the department. So this is how I am actually trying to ensure my student engagement throughout. Now, what is needed for this reflection diary? Well, obviously building up feedbacks on their works. So giving feedback is very, very important. And then documentation. So proper documentation is a requirement, to ensure, how they are maintaining their reflection journals. Now, the third assessment tool, which I would like to focus on, is how we can use individual assessment cards. Individual assessment cards. The term was totally new for me. I believe today also there are some people who are hearing this for the very first time. Now, let me clarify this and give you a little history about this assessment card. Now, the overview is that two Japanese teachers, uh, uh, one Japanese teacher, Clive Lovelock, developed this process in 1996. So Clive Lovelock came up with this idea first in 1996. And what was his purpose actually? His purpose was to develop students' communication skills and their learning skills. So keeping these two things in mind, he developed this assessment tool. And he mentioned actually some guiding principles. So there should be some guiding principles regarding this assessment cards. And what are they? If we can start from the top, well, it may start with obtaining, how we obtain, then storing, how we store, retrieving, and then how we use. And now let us move on to the next circle, which reflects active involvement in the learning process. So if we obtain, store, retrieve, and use, this is how we are actively involved in the learning process. And later, it focuses on consciousness raising. So this also raises consciousness among the learners. And finally, will social strategies and communication strategies could be developed, could be practiced thoroughly and throughout if we can ensure or if we can customize the assessment cards the way we want or according to the needs and levels of the learners, of the students in the class. Now, this is one side of Lovelock's assessment card. His card actually has two sides, and this is one side of the card. As you can see, there are a lot of columns, there are a lot of rows in the card, and it starts with name, number, class. This was his card, and look at the details, attendance. So students would be able to give their attendance here as well, and yes, they can include the number of their assignments, their due date, and their scores, the scores that they will be receiving, they usually receive from their teachers, and also comments, their own comments after receiving the score. So this is one side of the card, and this is the other side of that same card. Here you can see that he included actually 24 classes. In each semester, he used to teach 24 classes. That is why here you can see that 24 columns. But if you feel that I usually teach 30 classes in every semester, well, we can extend the column. The thing that I have just mentioned, that we can customize the card the way we want. And I would like to request you to focus on the keys actually, which have been mentioned at the end of the card. As you can see, it starts with E. E refers to speaking English in the class, not Japanese, because he was a Japanese teacher and he was teaching Japanese students. And then C, whether, classroom communication in English was ensured or not. Now, these keys actually are something which students should have in their mind. And if they feel that they are completing, they actually are ensuring all these keys in the classroom or during the lessons, of course, then they will put a tick in the plus points. If they feel that they have not actually tried to speak or they have not tried to communicate in English during the entire lesson, then they will put a tick in the minus points column. So this is how the card actually worked for him, for his classroom. Now, yes, of course, there are some important things which should be noted. And at the beginning, of course, students should read an explanation in English about these strategies listed on the card. And they also should know why they should use them. No, this is important because if we don't, explain the reason that, these are the specific reasons for which you will have to maintain this card. You will have to fill up this card every day after each of the lesson or during the lessons. They won't actually be able to complete that card, or they would rather be confused. So clarifying all the points and proper explanation is important at the beginning before using the cards, of course. And then in every class, an activity lasts from 10 to 15 minutes. And this is an easy way actually for students to collect points. And yes, of course, finally, it's important to set a maximum score based on the card. So yes, if we can also ensure, or if we can also explain that to our students that this is the maximum score which I'm looking for. So you'll have to actually get that maximum score. So keep this thing in your mind, and then please try to complete the lessons keeping all these things in the mind. Try to speak in English, try to communicate with your friends in English, try to discuss, and yes, a lot of other things, etc., etc. Now, I would like to show you my assessment card. This is my assessment card, customized card, of course, which I have customized according to the levels and needs of my learners. This is how you can see the card. Well, this semester, this is one of the shortest semester. And here in this semester, I will be teaching not more than 18 classes. So this is how I have customized my card, as you can see. Now the final tool which I would like to focus on is on using progressive I-can statements. And specifically, I would like to mention that this type of assessment tool can promote learner confidence. Definitely, it can promote. It can motivate my learners, our learners. Now, this strategy has been developed by Magda, Khadija, and Caroline, these three teachers, and they developed this strategy to develop students' confidence while teaching writing. So while teaching writing, they tried actually to engage learners to develop that confidence among the learners, and that is how they came up with this specific strategy or tool. Now, creating opportunities for students to state where they perceive they are able to do, which can be referred to as I-can statements, is very, very important. For example, I can write about daily activities in English. Now, look at this sentence. As an English language teacher, we usually teach essay writing, paragraph writing, summary, review, different types of writing in the classes. Now, and we also try to engage our learners to different types of writing activities as well. Well, if our learners can come up with statements like this after the activities or lessons, at the end of the lessons, that, ma'am, now I actually can write a compare contrast essay, or now I can write a descriptive paragraph. So how would that be? I believe you would agree with me. Well, this is how a student can be benefited. He or she can be motivated. Or we as teachers definitely would get idea whether my students actually got the points how to write a descriptive paragraph or not, whether they have got the idea or not. Now, how can it work? Of course, there are different ways. And here I would like to mention some. Now, teachers can present single I-can statement associated with a single task and have students write or say the statement when they complete that task. So yes, sometimes according to the levels of the learners, teachers can present a single I-can statement associated with a single or specific task. For example, it may work very well actually, with primary level of learners. I mean, according to my context, I'm sure it would definitely work with the primary level of learners. Now, if we actually can present a list of I-can statements, not one, but a list of I-can statements that students can copy, check off, and read out loud, then how would that be? I believe that there are some teachers who are thinking at this moment that yes, of course, for my learners, as they are not that basic level of learners, so I believe that I can give them a list of I-can statements, a kind of checklist which they can check after the completion of a specific lesson. So they can put a tick that now I can write the introduction of a descriptive essay, a compare contrast essay. Now I can develop two body paragraphs regarding a compare contrast essay, something like that. Now I know how to use transitional in paragraphs. So a lot of things, actually, a lot of things. At least 10 I can statements through which I can also get ideas whether my students actually got the ideas or not. And then depending on students' ability levels, the teacher can also present I can statements in scrambled order. If I believe that I have intermediate level of learners, I can scramble a lot of I can statements. And I can also request them to organize them serially, so that they can also come up with the ideas that yes, serially I can connect, or gradually I can connect. Well, this is how I have learned, or this is how I have tried to get all the points from the lesson. And what about the advanced level of learners? Well, we also have advanced level of learners in the classes sometimes. So how to deal with them actually, how this specific strategy can work with advanced level of learners. Well, here I must say that yes, the teacher can actually request students to come up with their own I can statements. So students can come up with their own I can statements, advanced level of learners. So this is how we can ensure, and we can definitely engage our learners throughout. Now, this is an example of an activity which I did in my reading class. I gave them a specific passage, and were the two questions. After reading the handout, they were supposed to write an argumentative essay, and they were supposed to assess their writings with the help of I can statements. I actually gave them a list of I can statements. So that was the picture of a reading class. These were the learning objectives. I won't get into the details of that, but yes, this is how we can think of leveling them up, bottom-up approach. So it can start with level 1 and then moving on to level 2 and then level 3, then level 4, 5, the way I want actually. And it also depends on the level of the learners, of course. And yes, so far I have been mentioning, only advantages of using alternative assessments, but yes, there could be some disadvantages, of course. And the very first point which I'd like to mention is that sometimes it's hard to evaluate, and it requires too much efforts, too much efforts. Sometimes it also requires funds. And then rating process is sometimes more subjective. Yes, of course, we understand, because in traditional exams, we don't have this kind of thing. But here it could be more subjective, and then inaccurate reflection of student progress and knowledge. Maybe this could be an issue, of course, sometimes. And yes, we have certain responsibilities after receiving the feedback, or after collecting all these things from the students. We need to, as teachers, note down these significant points regarding the lesson or teaching. We may have to improvise the lesson if needed, and we may also focus on improving our teaching on the basis of feedback. Now, there are a lot of platforms through which we can try to, focus on these different tools or strategies. For example, Moodle, Padlet, Google Classroom, all these are very, very common these days. In my university, I use Moodle because this is the platform through which the entire university engages the learners outside the classroom. And as a teacher, I have varieties of roles to play, of course, starting from controller to observer, organizer, participant, assessor, counter, resource person, tutor, and lots of other things. Now, I would like to end with the idea that yes, I believe that knowing what students know is very important. So we should know as teachers what our students know and what they don't know, of course. So that was all from my part. Thank you so much for hearing me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. Now we will have a Q&A session. If you have any question, you can ask the presenter directly by opening up your mic, or you can type in the chat box. I will read it out to her. Any questions you wish to ask, you may ask now.
Yes, you may also unmute yourself, and please, you may ask, because I believe that, well, you, okay, I can see a question from Linda. Is there a basic form of this assessment card that can be modified? If so, where would I find it? Yes, Linda, thank you so much for the question. Well, yes, there is a specific article of Lovelock which I can share with you. I believe you will get a specific form actually. Specific form, I mean the form which Lovelock developed. So I would be able to share that entire article with you if you want, so that you can customize it the way you want. But thank you so much, Linda, for your interest. And there's another question from Iman. Oh, my pleasure, Linda. There's another question from Iman. And his question is, are these classroom assessments formative or summative? Well, I won't talk about the formative or summative types of assessment. Rather, you can, think of this term. They are alternative types of tools. And as you can see, that here the focus is on assessing learners every day after the lesson. So obviously these are not the traditional ways through which we assess our students. I believe your school, your university also has a unique way to assess your learners. Am I right, Iman? Would you like to share something orally? You may mute your microphone and yes.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Iman from Egypt. I'm asking if this type of assessment could be summative. I'll do it in my classrooms for formative assessment, but it could be summative. You can make regulations by some marks to encourage the students to share in.
Yes, I thank you, Imam, for the question. Well, I must share with you, ma'am, that I actually tried to engage my learners through some schools as well.
Yeah. Just engagement, it means formative assessment. Just formative, to engage, not only formative.
Yes,
I agree with you.
Yes, and yes.
At your school, it's is it for some marks summative or not? Just for engagement.
Yes, that is interesting, because in my university, as teachers, I have that freedom. And I can actually assess my learners the way I want, other than the midterm and final examination. So I have almost, 30 marks in my hand. 30 marks. So
So it is summative.
Yes.
Yes.
Incentive. So giving incentive is important, Other than that, how would they feel that kind of connection? That is important.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, of course.
Hello.
Yes, please speak.
Hello. Can I just share my ideas?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Yeah, I am Khalid from Oman, Sultanate of Oman. I'm asking just about, yes, it is very important to assess the students, whether formatively or summatively. But the main concern is that we usually assess for learning, not the assessment of learning. It is very important to assess students for learning, because this will help them to develop their language skills. This is from
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yes, the learning should be assessed. Absolutely right. Thank you so much for the point.
Thank you. My question is that can we, for example, on online learning or teaching, specify certain tool for a certain, for example, a skill of language, for example? For example, can I use Padlet for assessing writing, and another tool for assessing, for example, reading, and so on and so forth? This is my question.
Yeah, sure, of course. Lovely question. Well, personally, I would also like to share with you the same that I also personally use Padlet. Believe me, I try to collect feedback from my students through Padlet. And you know, the students enjoy so much while writing in Padlet because it's colorful, it looks good, and there are emojis that they can use. I can also use. So, well, they like, they enjoy writing impacted, but yes, at the same time, the thing that you mentioned that we should assess actually their learning. So yes, they are writing with fun, with a lot of interest, but at the same time, what are they writing? So that is important. What do actually I want them to write to Padlet? That is the question. So yes, you can use, we all can use different types of tools, but believe me, these tools, all these assessment strategies definitely may help learners to reflect. So reflection is important. Then as teacher, I also need to reflect actually based on my students' feedback. Thank you so much, and thank you Tushita Borua, who is a teacher from Bangladesh.
Can I say something another thing? For example, I say worklet, for example, is very helpful for collaborative
Yes. Yes.
writing. The students can all of them join the worklet and then they start, for example, with the help of the teacher and with the support of him, they will start writing and they gradually improve their writing. Another thing, differentiating tools is also very important for motivating students and engaging them. We should not just rely on one kind of tool.
Yes.
Because even this student sometimes can be demotivated.
Yes, of course, and measuring their performances is important. We need to measure actually, and that is why I mentioned that it requires huge time. Now I can see that I can see a lot of comments actually in the chat box, and there are some teachers from my country as well. Tushita Borua, thank you so much for the comment, and Dharmendra Prasad, thank you so much. And Hoyuti actually asked a question: is it possible to assess all these students every day in a large classroom? Yes, Hoyuti, that's a very important question. I believe you are from India. Am I right, Hoyuti? Are you from India?
I'm from
Good evening, everyone. I'm from Bangladesh. I'm Hoymanti Shukla Roy from Bangladesh.
Okay, that's wonderful, Hoyuti. You are actually, we are from same country. Yes, I can understand. I can understand that probably you teach a large classroom. There are a lot of students probably in the classroom. Yes, how actually can we assess a large classroom? That is by Hoyuti. That is why all these strategies could be very, very beneficial. They actually could give us a lot of ideas at the same time in a very shortest amount of time. Because if you think of, for example, the assessment card, if you can customize the assessment card and you can give all the 50 or 60 students the assessment card, and if you tell them, instruct them, guide them that they'll have to fill up the assessment cards every day during the lessons or after the completion of the lessons, then actually they will be completing the assessment cards on their own. The thing that you need to do as a teacher, well, of course, you need to actually keep an eye, very keen eye, whether they are actually writing the points properly or not, because sometimes we can't rely entirely on these students. So that is where we need to give efforts. But believe me, 70% efforts will be by these students if we can properly ensure all these tools or strategies finally. But thank you so much for the question.
But ma'am, in a classroom, think that there are 50 students. So when I will serve them the cards and they will assess themselves, so is it possible to keep my eyes on individual students?
No, of course not. Well, let me share a personal experience with you. Whenever, for example, I give my student assessment cards, if I give them assessment cards, then if I think of an online classroom, what can I do? Well, as teacher, I believe we get ideas after 15 or 20 days, within 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that who are these students in the classroom who usually are engaged in each and every activities. And there are very few students who never ever participate in the classroom discussion, who never ever speak in the classroom. I believe as teachers, we get the ideas within 3 weeks. So that is how we can, technically focus on those 30 or 25% students that I know personally that they don't speak, they don't engage themselves, they don't actually participate in the discussion, they don't write, they don't have that interest, to be in the class the entire time. So I need to focus on those 20-25 more specifically. And of course, at the same time, we can't ignore those who are regular or who are serious, in terms of completing all the activities or tasks. So yes, of course, it requires huge time and efforts, as I have mentioned. As teachers, we need to be devoted actually, because teaching is something where we became teachers because we actually wanted to devote our a lot of time actually with our students, and that is why we are teachers.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your fruitful answer.
Yes, Tariku, I got the point. Thank you so much. And yes, if you want, I may share the PowerPoint slides with you later, of course. Probably to educate our...
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Tina. Do you have any more questions for our presenter? If we don't, we'd like to once again thank Ms. Tina. Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and your presence on this platform. And thank you everyone for your attendance. Goodbye, friend.
Thank you very much.